Hi everybody, it's Tim from the Pedal Shift Project. If you're new to the channel, a podcast all about bicycle touring, I just got back from a pretty awesome adventure. I was able to bicycle from Tampa all the way to a resort at Walt Disney World. And I thought it would be interesting for those of you who are interested in bicycle touring or Disney, or maybe both together, to see how I did it. How did I actually bicycle all the way to a Disney resort? So here we go. We're going to go through the maps.
You can check this all out over at Ride with GPS. Just search for Lakeland WDW 2022, and you can kind of see the approach here. I'm just going to show it very briefly here. This was the second day. I did start in Tampa. And day one, I went from Tampa to Lakeland, Florida. For purposes of this video, not as interesting. You can check out that route if you'd like. The Lakeland route out was from a hotel in the area, and it was very straightforward. While being on mostly bike lanes and paths getting out of Lakeland, I ended up on a couple of trails, including the Van Fleet Trail, which got me up through Polk City, and then on Dean Still Road, which is a major west-east thoroughfare for local cyclists and cycling clubs, which really does the heavy lifting for most of this portion of the trip. And then on mostly sidewalks and trails, US 27 is a very heavily traveled road. However, it did have a sidewalk, so I ended up taking the sidewalk. I talked all about this on the podcast, and you actually get to listen to me do that if you would like to pick all of that up. Now is the part where, if you're here for the how do you get into Disney World resort areas, this is the time when you may want to start paying attention. A couple of places for you to take a look here. And you'll notice here, these are the mile markers from Lakeland as we go along. If you have not used Ride with GPS, I highly recommend it here. Florence Villa Grove Road was a little bit dodgy in parts, I found. It was a little bit on the faster side, 45 to miles per hour speed limit, but no shoulders at all. What I did find was that I was able to hop onto sidewalks. The sidewalk was on the left side of the road for a good chunk of it, and that ended up working out just fine. In this part of Central Florida, there's just massive growth. There's lots of building of new resorts. You can see them here on the map. But Florence Villa Grove Road was probably my least favorite of all the roads, even though Highway 27, US 27 was super busy. It was a protected sidewalk, and that was no problem. Once you're on Florence Villa Grove Road, you make a left, and now you're in onto West Side Boulevard. This was all perfectly fine. Funny Steed Road, a funny name for a road. That was all perfectly fine. A combination of being on the road and on sidewalks, I found on Funny Steed Road. Once I got onto Lindfields Boulevard here, this made this left. Things were a lot easier. It was much more of a residential area. As you can just see here, these are all kind of single family homes, and things got very quiet, which was really delightful after riding amongst a lot of vehicles over the course of the day. And that loops you up here up until you hit Highway 192. And as you can tell by the red line here, I actually made a mistake. I was originally going to cross right here and get up here on, Strahan Boulevard and hook over. But I messed it all up and ended up crossing over here. This is not recommended at this point. Bronson US 192 is an extremely busy divided highway. I would very strongly urge that you cross at a light. I was impatient and did not, but I found a break in traffic and got across without any problems here. Definitely something that I would not recommend, though. Once you end up here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on, I think this is Arena Road, but you could also come in on Strahan to Arrowhead. These are all back roads, and it is stunning the difference between being on a major highway here and how quiet things get in these neighborhood areas. But once you get up on here, it's very quiet riding until you get to Avalon Road. Now, Avalon Road is going to be a really important road, I think, not just for this particular ride, but also in the future, as we'll talk about in a moment here. This is shoulderless, but it is a reasonable road. It's as reasonable as Dean Still Road, but actually at a slower speed limit, I found. And going northbound on here, it was only a matter of about a mile or so until I got over here on Hartzog Road. Now, one thing that I really want to note here is that this road in the here and now was passable. Pardon me, we'll keep this. And you can kind of see where I ran into some problems there in a moment here. But going on Hartzog is probably not going to be a good option for you in the not so distant future, perhaps even now, as I said here and record this in April of 2022. That's because Hartzog Road is going to be, at least this version of Hartzog Road, is going to end up being closed down right about where you see this strange curly Q going on. That's because a new development is being put in. I document this in the podcast. And basically the road just ends here. Now, Ride with GPS, Google Maps, they all show it being something as a doable thing. And let me even show you. You'll notice here that Hartzog Road continues and turns into Lake Gifford Way according to this, and moves on and goes by a golf course right here and moves up. This part of the road absolutely still exists. However, it is officially closed. So right around at this point. So one thing that you're going to end up seeing is the fact that there is a brand new Hartzog Road. Apple Maps actually shows that. You can see this very clearly. I'm going to zoom in here. That Hartzog Road ends right at this point, and that is true. However, it says that the new Hartzog Road works and exists, and I'm here to tell you that it actually is closed off still. So technically at this moment in time, neither of these two things is technically passable. I was able to get up and over and to work my way around the road that existed right here, and it was no problem. At some point in the near future, perhaps even now, new Hartzog Road will be in and will be available for you to do. So what you'll have to do is just go up northbound on Avalon Road a little bit more, and that will end up working out just fine for you. However, if that doesn't work for you, if Hartzog Road is still closed, and as of the moment at least, it looks like this portion where it meets Avalon does not exist yet, then all you simply need to do is to continue north on Avalon Road and get up to Western Way at this point right here. And this is the point where it's probably worth getting into showing you what the roads are looking like. And we'll do this using my favorite tool, which is Google Maps Street View. What we will do is we're going to show it at Western Way. You'll notice here we'll be on this particular road on Hartzog, working our way up, and you'll notice that there is a variety of different options here. In terms of going through tons of construction because there's a lot of things going on. But for the most part, there's either a minimal shoulder or a sidewalk. And I think that ended up working out just fine here until you get up to Western Way. And we'll talk about this in a moment. Now, if this is shut off to you, there are additional options. I mentioned that you could grab Western right off of Avalon. And if you don't mind riding on a road like this, where you can see there is some space to maneuver, it isn't a terribly high traffic road. The drivers, it's a straight shot. They can see you, they go around you. It's no problem. If you want to, this is definitely going to be available for you always to take Avalon all the way up to Western Way, which you need to get to at some point. You make the right here, and you'll notice something that's really important. For most of Western Way, there's an incredibly wide shoulder. I would call it a bike lane, but it's clearly not intended for that. But in any event, you can take Western from that point and go all the way. In fact, that was an original plan until I found those back roads, and I thought, may as well be on back roads as much as possible. But given how good Western Way is, that's certainly an option that's available for you as well. Either way, you're going to find yourself here, where you are on Western Way, working your way down to the one tricky spot, and I want to make sure that I've got the right spots here that I'm going. Yeah, okay. So this is right after you've made the right. Well, let's just back off. Let's say that you came the way that I did. You're on a Hartzog. You're right here. There is a crosswalk. I waited until traffic was perfectly clear, and then I made the right. You'll notice that there is little to no shoulder. That's really more of a drainage gutter for there. I turned around. Again, you can listen to this on the podcast, and there were no vehicles coming in. Of course, in Google Street Maps at the time this was taken, there were none. It was completely clear. So I just made a bolt for it, and this was where we ran into the first of a couple of places. There were on-ramps and on-ramps to a very busy highway here, which I believe is it's the Western Beltway, the Daniel Webster Western Beltway. It's a toll road. I don't know which toll road it is or what number it is, but in any event, the key when I was doing this was the fact that there was nobody behind me whatsoever. I did have a mirror so I could do it. So here I am. I knew that I could safely take this lane here. And again, this is the hardest part of the whole thing. Oh, it's 429. So at this point, you obviously don't want to go on to 429. I had nobody behind me, so I continued here and I took the lane. And I went forward and I went forward. Stop sign here for any vehicles that were there. If memory serves, there were a couple of cars that were there, but they had a stop sign. They saw me. They did not go through. I continued and had no vehicles behind me until about this point, but they all took the left lane and passed me by no problem. So I stayed somewhat towards the right-hand side of this, but I obviously had to take the lane. This is not an appropriate place to be cycling. It's a gutter. This was the point when I took a break because I had cars behind me, although they were all in the left lane passing me, and I needed and wanted to wait here in this safe, relatively safe space. This is a ramp of connecting traffic, and this is a yield sign, not a stop sign. So I waited here to make sure that there was a complete and full clear. And I did wait because as I stopped there, I did notice that there was a car approaching along the curve here. I yielded completely and waited for all vehicles to go by. If memory serves, I had a couple of cars that I waited for. When it was fully and completely clear, I took the lane. And this is the last spot. Here, again, no shoulder, but if you wait for it to be all clear, you get through here. And then if a car does come from behind you, they have 2 lanes to occupy here. And they did. If there were any subsequent cars that came through. And this is relatively fast. I didn't go at like breakneck speed, but I certainly was cycling at speed. And so you have one more spot. It was around this spot that it was either the Orange or Osceola County Sheriff passed me by in a squad vehicle, and they didn't care about me being on there. And that's when I knew everything was perfectly fine and perfectly legal at this point. So I kept continuing here, and this is the final spot. They do have a stop sign here. And so once you get past this point, you're pretty much in the clear except for one more to go. And as you continue, take the lane, you can be passed on the left-hand side as I was. I looked over my right shoulder here to make sure that there was nobody coming. You could stop in this triangle as well if you wanted to stop one more time. Notice that they have a yield sign, not a stop sign. So my attitude in this instance is to take a full stop, wait for an all clear, looking back, and I had no problems. I was able to go in, and as you go this much further, all of a sudden you'll notice what happens here. There's a merge, and this turns into a 2-lane motor vehicle highway and a large, luxurious space for cycling in safely. Not technically a bike lane, but as wide as any bike lane as you would ever have. This is what you have effectively for the remainder of the ride in. And so if you feel comfortable going through what I just described and showed you, the rest of the riding is relatively simple except for one thing. There are places where you're going to have to take advantage of some sidewalks and at least in one instance or a couple of instances, some crosswalks, which I strongly recommend. Although you are seen and hopefully have your lights on and you're open and notorious as a cyclist, folks aren't probably not assuming that there are going to be any cyclists out here on Western Way here. But because of the nature of this road, it is a 45-mile-per-hour road and cars are going by you. But this is a very comfortable space to be riding in. And you'll notice here, that there is a no stop. I'm sorry, there was a no stopping sign, and that is because we're approaching the entranceway here on Western Way, which with the big "Welcome to Walt Disney World" resort sign. When I did it, and I actually am going to drop in the video of me riding in, there were very strict no stopping, strictly enforced signs. So as a result, I did not stop until I thought I heard a pop, a very loud pop, right when I went underneath it. So I was quite literally in this spot right here, checking my tire because I thought I had an explosive flat of some type, or pinch flat, something. Turns out that must have just been from another vehicle going by, going over a can or something like that. Everything was fine, and so I proceeded to go along here. As you'll notice, it's harder to see based on the camera angle here, but there is a wide shoulder here also on Western Way. And there are hashes on it, and you can kind of see as we go along here. Now, I am going to, rather than bore you, you can see here, going along Western, we'll just do a little fast forward here, and you can kind of see what it looks like. See how wide, whoops, you can see how wide as I pull this down, how wide the shoulder is. 45 miles per hour. Cars typically were took the left lane. I did have a few cars come in the right lane, but I was so far over, I didn't feel even remotely at any kind of sense of lack of safety during any of this, which was really fantastic. I thought this was going to be a lot harder than it actually was, and it really wasn't. Okay, so many of you are probably interested in seeing some of the things that you don't normally get to see. You cross Reedy Creek, which is, for you trivia fans out there, you can't really see it. You can see, oh, I'm sorry, because I'm in the wrong lane. There you go. You can see Reedy Creek as you go by here. This is the namesake of the entity that is actually the city name, for lack of a better way of putting it, for Walt Disney World's government city. It's called Reedy Creek Improvement District. Really catchy, right? But anyways, that you cross Reedy Creek there. The other thing that is most important is which resorts are really possible to get to. Well, as it turns out, I would say along this route, from a safety perspective, it'll be basically Disney's Coronado Springs Resort, which is actually kind of nice. I've stayed there before. And then the ones that I eventually stayed at, which are the All-Star Resorts, which I will show you in a moment. They're down over here. And the reason you may be asking yourself, why those and why not something like the Dolphin or the Yacht Club or any of the other ones? It all has to do with the nature of the roads and how much shoulder you end up having. As it turns out, Western Way is fantastic. Buena Vista Drive is terrible, except around Coronado Springs Resort and going south past the water park, past the Osceola Parkway and the McDonald's. I know the McDonald's, and then eventually getting down here. And we'll show you that in a moment here. So let's show you how things look as we get closer to Coronado Springs. Again, you'll notice that the shoulder is quite great. You go around here, and as you go around this bend, you'll notice a back way into Coronado Springs. You'll see this right here. This is the Coronado Springs Resort. This is a fantastic way to get in here. It's the first time you actually see some of the Disney signs. But you could go in here. You could cross over here, wait for a break in traffic, and boom, you're in the Coronado Springs Resort, which is a resort that's often used for conventions and things along those lines. That's definitely a place where you could get into. You could cycle in there, and once you're in there, you're perfectly fine and safe, and everything is fine. You're along Coronado Circle, and you can get to the lobby, to wherever you need to go. There's actually some good restaurants and whatnot there. Okay, so here is, if you're not going to Coronado Springs and you're going to the All-Star Resorts like I did, you keep continuing your way, and you want to make sure you go towards Blizzard Beach, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and the Wide World of Sports. Stay in the right lane. If you end up on the left lane, you end up going on roads that I do not recommend. Most of the roads at Walt Disney World are just really, really shoulderless and highway speed and places where I don't think people in cars are looking very well. When you've got a shoulder, you at least feel like you're a little bit safer. I know it's not 100% safe, obviously, but I do think that it's safe enough, at least for my purposes. So you'll notice that there are other signs here that say Art of Animation, Pop Century, etc., etc. You are going to be going to the right. Now, this is the last spot where I thought it might have been a question mark in terms of safety. You'll notice the shoulder continues all the way here to Buena Vista Drive. Now, you do need to go right. You need to go south. However, Buena Vista Drive does not have a shoulder going that direction. But what it does have, for reasons I'm still baffled by, it has a sidewalk that begins precisely here when you cross the street. So what I did was I rode up. We had a red light. I rode up, went around, and I parked myself at this point right here. Right here. There were cars that were going straight to turn left. There were cars that were going to go to the right, which made a natural safe zone here. Plus, I was on an orange bike and very obvious and went right here. When the light turns green, immediately go straight to this point. The cars, and I'm just going to turn the visage around. You'll notice cars that in this lane are always good. They have to turn right, so they won't go this way, so you'll be safe. Cars here will go to the left. So long as you go basically from this point and then arc your way to there, that's a perfectly safe way to go. And right here is kind of a safe, protected area. You could hop up on the grass if you want to. I found that nobody was in this area here. And I actually, because the light for these folks was red at that point, because it's green for everybody making this left, there was that red there. You could just go straight on through. And at this point right here is the sidewalk. This is the beginning of a sidewalk. Again, it's also the end of a sidewalk. And I don't know why it ends there. But to be perfectly blunt, that is the reason why this all works out fine. And from this point on, you can actually end up taking the sidewalks all the way to where you need to go. I am going to pull off and we will show there's Western and Buena Vista. And what we will also do is we will throw on the bike layers. That's much better. So as you can see, it does appear that the sidewalk does go this direction for a bit, which gives you another opportunity to go into Coronado Springs through this particular area. I wouldn't recommend that. I would go through the back way that I had identified before. But this dark green line shows you how easy this all is. This is a sidewalk, but nobody was really on it. And it goes along. You pass by the Summerland Miniature Golf, Disney's Blizzard Beach Water Park, and then you get to your first point where you have to take advantage of some crosswalks just for safety's sake. But notice this continues and crossing under Osceola Parkway, which was very easy to do. And you go past the McDonald's. From the McDonald's, you utilize another crosswalk, and of course, it's got a timer on it and a cross light. So you cross here on Buena Vista, and then you continue to the other side where the sidewalk continues, and that takes you all the way in to All-Star Sports Resort, continuing on to All-Star Movies, or to where I was staying. I'm sorry. Let's see. There was sports. Sports was closed. Which one was this? All-Star Music, excuse me, and then All-Star Movies. And it goes all the way down here. There is, at this point, I believe, a check-in area of security, but the sidewalk actually I think it's right here. But the sidewalk goes right past it, and it's divided, so it's very easy to get through. I wasn't stopped. Nobody seemed to want to stop me at any point in all of this. But in any event, that is the way that you end up doing it. It is certainly possible. If you were interested in going in a way where maybe you were going on roads and you feel safer taking roads, It is possible potentially to go on Buena Vista in the other direction. You would have to take the lane. It is a two-lane road, if memory serves, going in. I've got to go the other direction. So you could take Buena Vista and go this direction to get to other resorts, but notice that the shoulder it goes kind of in and out. It's a little bit less than the other one and shrinks substantially. So I do think you would have to take the lane to be able to go to other resorts. I wouldn't do it myself. For me, I think personally, I think that the only resorts that I would feel safest coming to from this direction would be, again, the Coronado Springs Resort or these All-Star resorts. But, as we discovered through some other videos on YouTube, there is another entrance which would allow you to be able to get to the monorail resorts up in the area around Magic Kingdom. Of course, let me just pull up to here. How do you get there? You would have to enter in through Reams Road and come in off this direction. So you would go much further north than I did, come in, go far north of the Disney World property and come in down Floridian Place. And then you'd have the opportunity to go to either the Grand Floridian Resort or to Shades of Green potentially, or to the Polynesian Resort. I do think it is possible to ride on some of these roads over to the Contemporary Resort and some others. It does get a little bit dodgy there. Wilderness Lodge, I think, is also a possibility if you come in through this northern entrance. I didn't do that on this trip. It does look like it's possible. It's certainly a little bit more riding than anything else. If you back off and you see how this all goes, the way that you would go up there is you'd continue up on Avalon. Remember our old friend Avalon. And I entered in here on Herzog. There's another place that I identified here on Western Way if you want all bike lanes, basically. But if you wanted to go to those northern ones, you'd continue up Avalon until you came here to Seidel Road. Seidel would bring you in and up to Reams Road. Reams Road would take you to Floridian Place, and Floridian Place down into the northern entrance point to those other resorts. So that's another opportunity for you if you're interested in bicycling to Disney. I think it's really kind of fun. I was surprised. I had read on a variety of different Reddit boards and other things through the years, plus just my own observation coming into Disney World, that this was just too difficult to pull off. But ultimately, you can do it. And if you are interested in listening to the audio while I did it, I did an entire podcast on that. And that's going to be, you can check it out over at the Pedal Shift Project at pedalshift.net. So if you're interested in cycling into Disney, good luck to you. It's clearly possible.